Tonight, you're going to close your eyes in the dark. No walls that can stop a bite, no weapon within reach, just you, unconscious, breathing in a slow, rhythmic pattern that practically announces where you are. And somehow, almost every single night, nothing comes for you. Most people never even question this. You crawl into a tent in bear country. You sleep with a window cracked open. You lie there for 8 straight hours, completely blind to the world. It feels normal. It feels safe. But it shouldn't. Because for almost every animal on Earth, sleep is the single most dangerous thing it will ever do. Not fighting, not migrating, not giving birth, sleeping. Most people assume predators simply choose not to attack sleeping prey. Some invisible line of mercy, or some evolutionary rule that keeps its distance. That's not what's actually happening. The truth is stranger, and a lot more unsettling. Scientists have a name for this window of vulnerability. They call it sleep under the risk of predation. And what they've found changes the way you should think about every single night of your life. So stay with this one, because by the end, you're going to understand why half your own brain is still standing guard right now every time you sleep somewhere new. Let's start with the obvious question. If sleep is this dangerous, why isn't every sleeping animal getting picked off constantly? Researchers studying animal behavior noticed something strange. Across almost every species that's been studied, sleep makes an animal less alert than it is at any other point in its life, less able to see, less able to smell, less able to react in time. On paper, a sleeping animal should be the easiest meal in the forest. But here's what's fascinating. Scientists decided to test this directly. In a study on wild birds, researchers exposed sleeping great tits to the scent of a real predator, a weasel-like hunter that stalks them at night. They expected the birds to react, to tense up, to lower their body temperature less, the way an alert bird would if it sensed danger nearby. Nothing happened. The sleeping birds showed no physical response at all to the predator's scent. Their bodies cooled down exactly like they would on any ordinary, danger-free night. In other words, once a bird is asleep, its brain simply stops listening for threats. The danger is real. The alarm system is off. So what does that actually mean? It means the moment you fall asleep, you are, in a very real sense, deaf to the world trying to warn you. And it might be the strangest part of all. This isn't a flaw. It's built into how sleep works. Whatever sleep does for the brain, whatever repair or memory process is happening in there, it apparently requires shutting the senses almost all the way down. You can't run a full security system and a full repair shop out of the same building at the same time. Something has to give, and what gives is your awareness of danger. Which brings us back to the real mystery. If sleeping animals genuinely can't sense a predator closing in, why isn't nature one long massacre every single night? The answer isn't that predators are gentle. It's that prey animals stopped gambling on being noticed in time and started winning the fight before they ever closed their eyes. Researchers reviewing decades of animal behavior data found that species living in high-risk environments don't sleep the same way safer species do. They spend far less time in the deepest, most vulnerable stages of sleep. They wake more often. They sleep in short, fragmented bursts instead of one long, unguarded stretch. It's an uncomfortable trade. Worse rest in exchange for a better chance of waking up at all. But rationing deep sleep is only half the strategy. The bigger defense happens before the animal ever lies down. Choosing where to sleep turns out to matter more than almost anything else. Hidden burrows, dense cover, high branches a predator can't easily reach, tight groups, with some animals angled outward like a living perimeter fence. By the time an animal actually goes under, most of the danger has already been dealt with in advance. Not through vigilance while asleep, through location and timing chosen while still awake. And then there's a trick so strange it sounds almost impossible. Some animals figured out how to sleep without fully sleeping at all. Dolphins do it. So do many birds. They rest one half of the brain at a time, closing one eye while the opposite eye stays open, scanning. One hemisphere drifts into deep sleep. The other hemisphere keeps the muscles moving, keeps watch for predators, keeps the animal literally awake on one side of its own skull. A dolphin can do this while still swimming. A bird can do this mid-flight. Half of the brain rests. The other half never blinks.
It sounds like something built exclusively for animals in serious danger.
Ducks resting at the edge of a group have been observed doing exactly this, angling their open eye outward toward open space, while the ducks safely tucked in the middle of the group sleep with both eyes shut. The position in the group literally determines how much of the brain gets to switch off, which raises an uncomfortable question. If this kind of half-brain vigilance is a survival tool other animals evolved because sleep is so dangerous, does anything like it exist in you? In 2016, researchers at Brown University decided to test exactly that. They brought volunteers into a sleep lab and mapped their brain activity in extreme detail, using electrodes capable of tracking activity region by region, hemisphere by hemisphere. What they were chasing was a phenomenon sleep scientists have known about for decades, but never explained. People sleep worse on their very first night in an unfamiliar place. Scientists even have a name for it, the first night effect. The obvious guess is that it's just nerves, or an uncomfortable pillow, or a strange sound in a new house. But that's not what the data showed. On the first night in a new environment, one side of the brain showed a completely different pattern of activity than the other. Deep sleep in that hemisphere was noticeably lighter. That same hemisphere reacted more strongly to sounds played into the sleeping volunteers. And that hemisphere was far more likely to jolt the person fully awake if something unexpected happened. By the second night, in the same room, that difference had already disappeared. Both sides of the brain settled into equally deep sleep. In other words, for exactly one night, one side of your brain runs its own quiet night watch. Lighter sleep, sharper hearing, a faster trigger to wake you up. Not because you consciously decide to be careful. Your brain does it automatically. The very first time you close your eyes somewhere, it doesn't yet recognize as safe. That's the same basic strategy dolphins use to survive open water full of predators, and birds use to survive the night sky. Except in you, it isn't a permanent feature. It only switches on once, the first night, the unfamiliar place. The moment your ancient threat detection system decides it can't fully trust its surroundings yet. Think about how much that explains. The exhausting first night in a hotel room, the restless first night in a new house, the unsettled sleep on a friend's couch, or in a tent on the first night of a camping trip. You always assumed that was just discomfort. It isn't. It's an ancient defense mechanism, quietly running a security check on an environment it has never had to defend before. So here's where all of this actually lands. Sleep never stopped being dangerous. Nothing evolved to make predators merciful. And nothing switched off the risk that comes with lying unconscious in the dark. What changed is that every surviving species, including you, inherited a set of tricks for surviving that risk anyway. Choose the location carefully. Sleep in shorter, lighter bursts when the danger is real. And if all else fails, keep part of the brain standing guard, while the rest of it finally gets to rest. You've been carrying a piece of that system your entire life, without ever knowing it was there. Every time you've slept somewhere new and woken up exhausted, some part of you assumed it still had to watch the door. The forest never got safer. You just never stopped standing guard.